The no guns allowed sign only works on one type of person, and it's not the one you're worried about. BSKS Classroom at BSKI Mike 22802. I picked up a pizza, and then I had to give someone a reality check. Last week, I pulled up to a major pizza chain to pick up my order. Walked up to the door and saw it. You know the sign? The red circle with a gun crossed out? No concealed carry permitted. I stopped, went back to my truck, took off my gun, secured it in the glove box. Because that's what law-abiding citizens do. I went inside, and it just so happened the franchise owner was working that night. So I asked him about the sign. He told me he'd been robbed at gunpoint before, that he never wanted that to happen again. And I could hear it in his voice. He was genuinely scared. I understood that. I respected that. This man had been through something traumatic and he was trying to do something about it. So I said to him as calmly as I could manage, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You have a sign on that door. Your theory is that someone who has already decided to bring a gun to commit armed robbery, a premeditated felony, is going to see that sign and think, oh, darn, if I bring my gun in there, I could get a trespassing charge on top of the armed robbery charge. I better turn around. He started to say something. I kept going. The person who is already planning to commit a felony is going to be stopped by a trespassing violation. Let's take this even darker. What if this guy decides he doesn't want witnesses? He shoots you. Right now, I am sitting in my truck in your parking lot with my firearm. The firearm your sign made me lock in my glove box. The owner's eyes got wide. He said, wouldn't you come in and help me? And I said, very simply, no, I am not a criminal. You put a sign on your door that says only criminals are allowed to carry guns in your establishment. I follow the law. He doesn't. That's the entire problem with your sign, right there in one sentence. He stared at me for a long moment. Didn't say another word. The next time I drove past that restaurant, the sign was gone. You are welcome. If that story made you think, like this, share this, and drop a comment below, what would you have said? Now, let's talk about the science. Since I'm literally a science teacher, that pizza story is not just a funny anecdote. It is a perfect real-world illustration of what the academic research has been screaming for 30 years. The people who follow gun laws are not the people committing gun crimes. This is not my opinion, Dr. John Lott, Stanford-trained economist, formerly of the University of Chicago, published More Guns, Less Crime after analyzing data from all 3,054 US counties across an 8-year period. Not a sample, not a survey, every county in America. The data ran 13,312 separate regressions. 89% were statistically significant at the 1% confidence level. For those of you whose statistics class was a while ago, that means the results are not random. They are not a coincidence. They are about as solid as academic findings get. For each additional year that right to carry laws are in effect, violent crimes declined by 2.4%, murders by 1.6%, rapes and aggravated assaults by over 3%, and robberies by 2.7%. Dr. John Lott. States with right to carry laws saw murder rates drop by roughly 20%. And here's the part that really sticks in the craw of the gun control crowd. The benefits grew every single year as more people obtained permits. The more law-abiding citizens who carried, the safer everybody got, including the people who chose not to carry. In high-crime counties, the exact neighborhoods politicians claim they're protecting with restrictive gun laws, violent crime dropped 6%, murder dropped nearly 10%, rape dropped over 7% after right to carry was adopted. The communities that suffer most under gun restrictions are the same communities gun control politicians claim to care about most. That's not irony. That's Jim Quinn's first law of liberalism in textbook action. Liberalism always generates the exact opposite of its stated intent. Chicago, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, every city with some of the strictest gun laws in America, every city with homicide rates that would make a war correspondent uncomfortable. Meanwhile, rural Vermont, where you'd be hard-pressed to find a household without multiple firearms, consistently ranks among the safest places to live in this country. The policy produces the opposite of its stated purpose. Every single time. Share this. If you're tired of policies that punish law-abiding citizens and protect no one, the permit holders are not your problem. And here's the proof. Some actual numbers, because I'm a science teacher, and this is what we do. Florida issued over 380,000 concealed carry permits between 1,987 and 1,996. Know how many were revoked for a gun crime? 72. That is 0.02%. And most of those didn't even involve the permitted weapon. Virginia. Not a single permit holder was involved in a violent crime in the program's first years of operation. Texas. 114,000 plus licenses issued in year one. 17 revoked, for reasons not even specified. Michigan loosened its concealed carry law in 2001. 6 years later, according to the Detroit Free Press, violent crime was below the rate of the previous 6 years. Overall firearm deaths, including accidents and suicides, also declined. 155,000 Michiganders were legally carrying dire predictions of bloodbaths from anti-gun legislators. What actually happened? Less violence, less death. The people going through background checks, training classes, fingerprinting, and waiting periods are not the ones robbing pizza restaurants. Gun control? It's the best thing you can do for crooks and gangsters. I want you to have nothing. If I'm a bad guy, I'm always gonna have a gun. Sammy, the Bull, Gravano, convicted mob hitman. I want you to sit with that for a second. A professional murderer understood the entire failure of gun control better than half the US Senate. He said that out loud. Sammy Gravano, a man who killed people for a living, understood intuitively that disarming law-abiding citizens is a gift to people who are never going to follow the law anyway. Maybe your legislators could consult with him. He's available. He's not doing much. Agree? Like this article and subscribe to Beaskey's Classroom about the cost of a cup of coffee per month. The government has zero legal duty to protect you. Zero. This is the part that makes people the most uncomfortable. 2 Supreme Court cases that somehow never get mentioned in the gun control debate. DeShaney v. Winnebago County, 1989. A young boy was beaten so severely by his father that he suffered permanent brain damage. The state had been warned repeatedly. The court ruled 6-3 that the government has no constitutional obligation to protect individual citizens from private violence. Town of Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, 2005. A mother had a restraining order against her estranged husband. He kidnapped their 3 daughters. She called police multiple times. They did nothing. He murdered all 3 children. She sued. The Supreme Court ruled the government has no legal duty to enforce a protective order or protect individuals from harm. Read that. Again, the government is not required to protect you. That is settled constitutional law, not my opinion. The Supreme Court, so the exact same political class that just told you the government has no legal obligation to protect you, also wants to remove your ability to protect yourself. And they're doing it for your safety. I'd say that's a special kind of stupid, but that might be giving them too much credit. The wheel is spinning, but the hamster fell off years ago. Prohibition called. It wants its strategy back. We banned alcohol, 1920 to 1933. Do you want to know what happened? Consumption dropped briefly, then climbed right back up. What also happened? The rise of organized crime, explosion of violence, thousands of deaths from unregulated bootleg liquor, and the complete corruption of law enforcement in nearly every major American city. We tried to ban a liquid you can make in your bathtub, and it gave us Al Capone. Now the plan is to ban 400 million firearms already in private circulation, manufactured by an industry that can produce millions more from a population with generational knowledge of how to make them, in a country where 3D printing technology has made the entire argument academically entertaining at best. How did the war on drugs go? Over $1 trillion spent since 1971. Drugs are cheaper, more potent, and more available than they were in 1971. That is not my opinion. That is DEA data. The policy doesn't work. It has never worked. Banning things from law-abiding citizens only disarms law-abiding citizens. If you stand close enough to some of these legislators and listen carefully, you can hear the ocean. All foam, no beer. What actually reduces violence? Since we're here. Because the data does give us real answers. And they're inconveniently not take guns from responsible people, arrest rates. When criminals believe they will be caught and prosecuted, crime drops. Not complicated. Basic deterrence theory, confirmed in virtually every criminological study ever done. Permit density. Here's something Lott found that doesn't get enough attention. If you are a would-be attacker walking into a restaurant with 80 people, and there's even a 5% chance any given person is legally armed, the probability that at least one of them is carrying approaches 100%. You don't have to carry to benefit from your neighbor's right to do so. The concealed carry holder protects everyone around them, whether or not they know it. Multiple victim public shootings, what we call mass shootings, dropped dramatically in every state that adopted right to carry laws in Lott's study. Average fatalities per event went from 1.91 to 0.42, not a rounding error. A 78% reduction. Mental health intervention, not the lock up anyone who looks weird kind. The kind where we take seriously the warning signs that have been documented in virtually every mass shooting, and where we stop letting systems fail to communicate with each other. The Sutherland Springs shooter should have been in the federal background check database. He wasn't, because the Air Force failed to report his conviction. The Parkland shooter was reported to the FBI twice. The existing system, properly enforced, would prevent more mass casualty events than every magazine capacity limit ever dreamed of, combined. You can't argue with 13,000 regressions. Well, you can try. They usually respond by calling lot names, which is not, I have to point out, a peer-reviewed methodological critique. It's just in a battle of wits, fighting completely unarmed. If this article made you think, like this article so the algorithm shows it to people who need to read it. Share this. Every share is worth 12 likes to the algorithm. Use it. Comment below with your take. Do no gun signs make you feel safer? Or do they just make the criminal's job easier? Tell me. And if you want more of this, the data, the history, the science, the stories, join Beaskey's classroom community or follow me on YouTube. Even better, subscribe to my account. It is about the cost of a cup of coffee per month. That is it. Your support keeps this classroom open, and I promise I will never run out of material as long as the left keeps trying to out-dumb itself. But what do I know? I am only a combat medic who qualified expert with my service weapon, a concealed carry holder for over 20 years, and a science teacher who thinks 13,312 statistically significant regressions might be worth reading before you write a gun law.